A lot of people think that maybe one of the greatest vintage guitar tones of all time was the Wind Cries Mary that Hendrix played. I don't think that guitar was more than a year old. I don't think the amp was more than a year old. Those were brand new instruments and they were making those tones. So I don't think it's got anything to do with being old. I think it's got a lot more to do with knowing what you're doing and putting the right pieces of the puzzle together so that you can get a guitar to sound like this. And this is a 594. The scale length is 24.594, which is 24 and 19/30 seconds. I like to measure scale lengths, and it's one of my favorites. What drove us to do a vintage-inspired instrument now? There's a couple things driving the bus. One, PRS Guitars isn't just in competition with all the other guitar manufacturers. There's millions of vintage guitars out there, and somebody can use their money to buy a vintage guitar or a new guitar. And one of the things that I wanted was to have an instrument that served the musician as well or better than the vintage instruments they had. One of the things I wanted to have happen was to have an instrument that you could buy that was brand new, that sounded big and open and vintage, and not have the problems of vintage guitars. Part of the 594 for us is saying this is the core of these vintage instruments done with modern techniques. One of my favorite sayings is the physics on my bench isn't any different than the physics on Dumble's bench or in Fullerton, California, or wherever these magic old guitars were made. And I always thought that was a great comment. We have the same ability to dry the woods, getting all the resins crystallized. We're still making sure that things are really hard in the finish and really thin. The second thing is that people are starting to use the guitar as a synthesizer controller for their pedal board. And I wanted a new guitar that somebody would want to plug straight in and it sound big and open and vintage and modern at the same time. I was at a music store in Chicago and we were doing a clinic and I was talking about 57s this and 59s that, and I was talking about different models of vintage guitars and, you know, what my experiences were with this, that, and the other. And this guy stands up in the middle of the crowd and he raises his hand and he goes, Paul, we've never played a 57. We've never played a 59. We've never played a 61. All we've played are reissues. We don't know what you're talking about. And I realized at that time that I had spent my entire career going to these vintage shows and playing all these old instruments, and they had not been doing that. They now thought that a reissue was what I was talking about. That day inspired me to want to say, well, if that's true, well, maybe we could put something out that would be not just reflective, but deeply competitive with that stuff. We released the 594. We didn't talk a lot about what was in the guitar. This guitar was just taken out of a box at one of our production instruments. And when I plugged it in, I mean, it just kept going and going and going and going and going and going. Why has the market accepted 594s so well? And I just wanted to go over each piece of the guitar really quickly. The first thing is that anything that the guitar string touches is God. And magic for the player is paying attention to a huge amount of detail. So I'll give you an example. If you got everything right, but the nut's not right, you got a problem. You got everything right, but one of the pickups is not right, you got a problem. You got everything right, but the guitar doesn't stay in tune, you got a problem. If everything's right, but it doesn't play in tune when it's in tune, you got a problem. Every little teeny piece is a deal breaker, and you've got to get them all right. Attention to detail is a cumulative event, and every time you don't get one right, it subtracts from the guitar in a way that's not musical. We have done everything in our power to get every little piece of this right. It turns out that the tuning pegs do have a big impact on the way the guitar sounds, and we made some very special tweaks on these things so that the guitar could freely ring. We've decided on 594s that we've put a super dried bone nut on it. We were able to change the scaling to 24.594 and get the frets and the nut exactly in the right place so the thing plays beautifully in tune. There was a comment that John Mayer made about the instrument, how beautifully the instrument played in tune and stayed in tune. We put an asymmetrical neck shape on the guitar where it dove off a little more in this area and then dove off a little more in this area. So as you go up, the diving off moves around the back of the neck. We've stayed with the really thin base coat finish and really thin top coat finish. We put very special pickups in it. There's about 15 different variables in pickups. It's not just the DC resistance. Instead of talking about how many turns are on it or what kind of Alnico or what kind of wire or what kind of this or what kind of that, we just let the market make a decision for themselves, and the feedback we got was almost 100% positive in terms of how much they like the way the pickups sound. And what we didn't advertise when we came out with this guitar is it has basically the same pickup in the treble and bass position. Very often with us and other companies, we'll wind the treble pickup a little different than the bass pickup because they're in a different position and call for that. But somehow these pickups sounded beautiful, wound the same in both positions. Bass pickup. There's a couple of really good indicators about what's a really good guitar. One of them is, do you like it? One of them is, just generally, do you experience the instrument well? Is it taking energy away from you? Is it giving back? Another one, you can check the guitar with a stopwatch. A guitar that rings for 45 seconds, in my mind, is better than a guitar that rings for 5 seconds. So you can do that. But there's another indicator as well. On a really good guitar, the low strings have lots of high-end content. But as you go up, it gets warmer. Treble pickup. And a lot of these rock stars that are searching for instruments are looking for that quality without actually coining it. They want the guitar to sound beautiful and thick up top, and they want all kinds of clarity down low. We sent a guitar out to one artist, and he was recording a record. And he called me back and he said, well, Paul, the producer says this is the best electric guitar has ever been in his building. He did that based on the kind of sounds they were getting on all the tracks that they were using the instrument on. I thought that was really nice. That's about as high a compliment you can get, because that it's working for them and they're using it in the set, that says something to me. That says that we did our job, because the artist is going to use the instrument that they're most comfortable with. My experience that most of the time, artists are using what they love, not what they're paid to use. Holy Grail tone is different for every artist. The tone that Carlos gets and the tone that Mark Tremonti gets and the tone that any other artist gets is different in their head, but could they use this to get that? That's the question. The idea of this guitar is not that it does one specific thing. The idea of this guitar is that you could use it to play jazz on. And you could use it to play blues on. You could use it to play R&B on. You could use it to play rock on. You could use it to play all these different styles, and it's just an instrument to get the artist what they hear in their head. I like tools that'll do a lot of different jobs. If it was only a funk guitar and that's all it did well, in my mind, okay, that's fine. But I'm trying to build an instrument that is a tool that anybody could find a use for in a good way. It's one of those guitars you can pick up and use. It should drive a pedal board well, it should drive an amp well, it should record well, it should stay in tune, it should play in tune. All the things that you would want from a guitar.